Tough day at the office yesterday. Obviously the things that have served us well in the past in terms of the culture that we have with our defense, stopping the run, doing a great job pressuring the quarterback. Those things did not serve the purpose, did not serve the objectives that we have, and that's to support us winning a football game. When I looked at the film, after I looked at the film, I'll say this: I retained a supreme confidence and belief in our players, our system, our scheme, and then the coaches that are directing the efforts that we have and installing and teaching. And so everything that we saw yesterday, I mean, there were some situations where we were right there, right at the point of attack, and we just got to finish. Technique, fundamentals, we got to play faster, play ahead of the play instead of playing with the play, especially on defense. All those things will get corrected. I'm looking forward to going back to work this week and getting ready for Cincinnati. I'll take your questions.
Coach, we just spoke with Ron about what some of the issues might have been. He said mental, physical errors on both sides. I'm wondering what you saw in both of those categories.
Sure, that's consistent with what I saw, Jordan, and looking at the tape. There were some situations where we weren't exactly where we needed to be, whether it was an assignment issue or an issue related to technique. That's really consistent with what I saw. And there were occasions where we were able to overlap and mitigate some of the damage in terms of those things. And then against a good football team, credit to Atlanta, with the explosive backs and the offensive line that they have, they took advantage and exploited those things. We'll shore those things up, and we'll be ready to go. You'll see the Panthers defense that we're all accustomed to seeing.
We just don't see a lot of mental errors from this front seven. We're definitely not accustomed to having this type of conversation with you following a game.
Well, yeah, and you know what? Sometimes that happens, and I'm not going to dwell on it. We just had a fantastic meeting with the guys. The guys are very confident. They're able to look at and see from a man, and especially with the coaches, where the breakdowns were. We'll go back to work. The great thing is we don't have to make anything up. We go right back to how and what we measure our standards against, and that's our system. That's tackling, takeaway, red zone, and points, the things that determine games. We'll get those things fixed.
Eric, Ron also used the word lazy. Mm-hmm. Did you see examples of that defensively?
If that's the way Coach characterized it, then I'll follow suit with that. If we need to play faster, we need to play with more effort, more energy, then that's exactly what we're going to do.
Eric, what did you make of the players' response to this? Obviously, you and Coach Rivera have made it clear that the standard is very high, but the players believe that as well.
Sure.
What did you take from their response to seeing the film and reviewing it with you this morning?
I saw a group that was disappointed, definitely disappointed with the performance and the outcome. I mean, we lost a football game, and but I also saw a group that set and received the feedback that I gave them specifically, and they walked out of there understanding that one game does not change who we are. It doesn't change how we and what we feel about ourselves, how we believe in ourselves. We made some mistakes. We'll get those things fixed and corrected, but they're determined, and I think they're anxious to get back on the practice field.
What did you see when Denoris left with the concussion? What did you see from both Colin and Rashawn at that safety slot that you liked or maybe didn't like?
Well, I thought both guys came in, in that situation and gave us good energy. They gave us range, and they were able to make sure that they stayed in the lead position. We got really good run support from both safeties, and there's a reason why we like both guys, and we feel very comfortable with them being in the football game at either time. We had a situation where we brought Rashawn as a blitzer, and we saw him in that role and in that situation, and so. All of the things that we felt about those guys, and that's why they're here. And if they have to play an extended role, we feel very comfortable.
Both Ron and Dante disagreed with the PI. Is there something you can take from that one that's a teachable moment at all?
Yeah, well, if that's what was called, then that's what's called. I mean, we have to do we have to make sure that we do everything that we possibly can to stay out of the situations where we incur a foul. And so Dante, I mean, his transition was excellent. He's trying to work to the top shoulder of the receiver on a very quick out throw, and there just happened to be contact at that particular point. But there isn't a whole lot. I mean, the penalty obviously led to points, but in terms of the way he played it, I mean, it's one of those things that was just kind of happenstance.
Eric, What do you take away from James' performance against Julio yesterday?
I mean, well, I'm very excited about the way James performed, and not just because it was against Julio Jones. I mean, James has a lineup against the #1 receiver week in and week out. I mean, James. I'm not surprised at how James performed because his practice last week was outstanding, and so we are constantly making the connection, Max, between preparation and the type of performance that you can anticipate. And James did a great job.
You had, Luke had to fight through a lot of traffic and blockers yesterday. It seemed to be more than normal. Your front guys typically done a good job keeping that traffic off of him. What do you think the difference was with your interior guys yesterday?
Well, Joe, with that wide zone scheme, that is a scheme that's very technique specific. And it really, we always, when we talk about that scheme, we always emphasize with our defensive tackles, they have to play great. And that means they have to penetrate, we got to get great edges set, and then our linebackers have to play downhill. A couple of times we weren't exactly doing that to the degree that I've seen us do it in the past, specifically against that scheme, and it really created some indecision with the second-level defenders, the linebackers, and if we had a safety rotated down in the box, it just wasn't as clean of a look for those guys. And so you go back to the fundamentals of how you attack and defend that particular scheme. The tackle's got to set the table, and we'll do that next time.
Captain mentioned that when you have a couple of younger players, especially when Rashawn went into the game in the secondary, there are going to be some growing pains sometime. Are there ways to mitigate those other than just by more reps, more practice, more film study? Is there anything personally the guys can do to mitigate some of that?
It's just a combination of all those things. I mean, experience is the best teacher. But at the same time, when you have younger players that are playing big-time roles for you, there's time on task. We got to do a great job as a coaching staff of making sure that we're giving them the repetition on the practice field and in the meeting rooms. You know, anytime that there's something on tape that really speaks to exactly what we want in terms of technique, situational awareness, we got to expose those guys to that and make sure that they get as much of that information as possible.
Can you talk about Luke in general, though, the level of play he's had through the first 2 games?
Well, like I said last week, Luke's been outstanding. I'm glad he's on our team, and not just because of the physical attributes that he has and the things that he brings to the table, David, but the leadership. You know what I mean? I mean, yesterday, one of the things that really stood out to me, obviously things aren't going well, and you want to stop them. You want to play to the level that you think you're capable of, and guys get frustrated. Well, Luke was a leader on the boundary and on the field. He was a guy that kept trying to keep everybody together, communicating with the coaches, myself, Steve Russ, talking with the secondary and making sure that we were doing everything we could to limit the damage and to put ourselves in position to win the football game, which the guys happened to do in that 4-minute situation.
His level of knowing what's going on out there versus when he first came in the league, how would you say, what's the difference? Has it changed that much, or has he always been that way?
He's grown every year. I mean, when Luke came into the league, he was like, I mean, Luke is an intelligent young man in football intelligence and just general intelligence. But he has taken advantage of every opportunity that he's been in to learn and to grow and to not only understand what his job consists of, but to understand the big picture and be able to help his teammates on the grass during games and then also in the preparation process.
A couple other guys got their first defensive snaps in Corn and Marquise. Can you talk about first impressions?
Yeah, Corn came in. Obviously Corn came in when Dante went out of the football game, and Corn was solid. I mean, he was solid. There were a couple of things that Corn will do a better job with next week as we move forward when he gets his next opportunity to play. But he was solid. And Marquise, would like to see him be just a little bit more impactful as a rusher. He came close a couple of times as a point of attack run defender. There's some things that we'll shore up and tighten up, but he was solid also.
Ron mentioned a couple of times that when they were running the ball as effectively as they were, it really set up their play action, and you had to honor that consistently. How does that affect how aggressive you are from a play calling perspective?
It can to a degree, but at the same time, I have to stick with the things that we believe going into the game plan will give us the best chance of producing negative plays and managing or stopping whatever they're doing, whether it's a run scenario or whether it's play action. So you have to be mindful of the offensive concepts, but that can't totally change you as a play caller.
After watching the film, you've had success getting to Ryan before in numerous games, but didn't really get there. What was your interpretation of why?
We got to rush better. We got to be more, especially in obvious passing situations, 2-minute third down, when we like to cut our 4-man rush loose. You know, the things I opened up talking about, the things that had served us well in the past. Well, that's our organization executing our rush games, making sure everybody's on the same page. We just have to do a better job with that, get back to being who we are in those situations.
When you come in and watch film with some of these guys and meet with some of these guys today, what's the first thing you say to them after something like yesterday?
That we're still going to be the best D in the National Football League. What we need is consistency. And I retain the supreme confidence and belief in who they are as people and professionals, and there's nothing that's going to turn me around from that.
In terms of your methodology, do you come in with like an inspirational quote? Do you come in just with directives, or how do you open that conversation up? How do you present to them?
Well, I want to make sure I'm true to who I am. I don't try and do anything that be for effect and anything because someone else did it. I try and communicate and speak in a way that's true to who Eric Washington is, and I think you have to. I think that's believable to the guys. I think they respond to that.
We have not seen Pep on the field very much these first 2 weeks. Why is that?
Well, yeah, he needs to play more, and he will. I mean, we need to do a better job with the rotation, getting Pep in the game in obvious passing situations, and just rotating him in general. But there's no reason why his snap count has been what it is. I mean, there's no particular reason.
It was Ron had said something maybe about still getting his legs under him and that kind of.
No. He needs to be on the field. We need to do a better job with the rotation.
The Bengals played Thursday night. Did you try to squeeze in a chance to watch them live at all? Does that kind of change things, being able to watch your team live versus on film?
Right. I'll take a peek at the next opponent, but for me, it's if I start to look ahead too far, it kind of clouds the rhythm and the thought process and the mindset I have for who we're getting ready to play. I'll have plenty of opportunity to unpack the Bengals and to get ready to inform our players about who they are and what we're going to do against them.
Such a big 3-week stretch for James with Julio and now A.J. Green and then Odell. Is this kind of where he, kind of stakes his claim to be a number one corner in the NFL, is in this stretch right here?
Yeah, James just has to continue to line up and do the things that we know that he can do at as high a level as possible. Every week in this business and in this league, you're going to see an outstanding receiver, some of the marquee guys, and then even guys that don't have the higher profiles. So James has just got to get ready to go, and we'll be ready to go this week.